Will be just a quick chat tonight and look forward to talking about baseball and the Blue Jays. Boy, oh boy, has it been a big couple weeks. All right, Jays fans, looks like we're getting started here now. As I said, I do apologize. There's probably going to be a little bit of background music going on right now, so hopefully we can get through that and it's not too much of a distraction, but just wanted to talk quickly because the Blue Jays have made another big signing. That's right. It looks like Marcus Semien's coming over to Toronto. It's going to be a one-year deal, $18 million. Really interesting. I had suspected a one-year deal all along for Semien. I just didn't expect him actually coming to the Blue Jays. To me, that was a huge, huge surprise. So thank you again, everybody joining me here. Apologies, there's a bit of background noise, but that should drift off in just a couple minutes here. But we're talking about Marcus Semien and the Jays aiming up $18 million. He's hoping for a big rebound year, kind of like what Josh Donaldson did. And that's what I suspected when I did his vlog a little while ago, that he wanted that $100 million. If you know anything about Marcus Semien, before we get into his stats, he wanted to sign that $100 million contract. He was really vocal. He's kind of an outspoken guy, but outspoken in a good way, not outspoken maybe like Trevor Bauer. And this is going to be a chance for him to really come to the Jays, and he wants to play hard. He wants to play well. So those are things that are great for Toronto. And then he's going to go ahead and sign a huge contract. So I see this just being a one-year reunion with Toronto, probably. Maybe not long-term, especially if he does perform well and he could put up numbers like 33 home runs. And if you don't know about Marcus Semien, one thing that you see me smiling about here is he's only 1 year removed from hitting, I'm going to look at my numbers here, make sure I get it right, 285, 33 home runs, and an 8.9 signing. So unbelievable. Again, thank you everybody joining me on. Thought we'd just do a big quick chat here. Apologize for the background music, but it's going to dwindle off hopefully soon. And yeah, so just 1 year ago, he hit 33 home runs. Last year, even with that weird COVID season, he still put up okay 7 home runs. His average was way down though at 223. But I don't think that's going to be a problem for Marcus Semien. I think I can expect him to produce what most analysts say. And when I was looking at those numbers quickly before I came on, they say somewhere between 250 to 260, maybe 15 home runs. So he's somebody who's going to be probably slotted 7 to 9 into the Jays. But I like this move because, as somebody said, it means that he's going to be moving over to second base. Allows Bo to play shortstop, and it allows him to have that flexibility. Something happens to Bo's not playing, they could always switch, or Marcus Semien could cover Bo. Knock on wood, I'm not suggesting injuries, but you never know what's going to happen. And that's what I like about Marcus Semien. Additionally, I guess this means that Bo moves over to third base. Sorry, not Bo, Kevin Biggio, I should say. But I heard something else when I was reading all this news coming out quickly, and it's been popping up a couple times, and I'm not saying there's merit to it, but when you hear the rumors come up again and again, it's worth discussing. And that is the Chicago Cubs. And people are now suspecting, hey, maybe Biggio is this player that's in play here. I'm not a huge fan of trading away Biggio. He's a positional player, kind of like DJ LeMahieu. Really young, so he hasn't had a chance to grow into his boots and just has tremendous upside. But people are now chirping about Biggio as opposed to Lourdes, maybe going over to the Chicago Cubs and bringing back Chris Bryant and Kyle Hendricks. And I really like the idea of Kyle Hendricks. As I said in my vlog, or I don't know if I've actually released that one yet. I think I just filmed it. But the nice thing about Kyle Hendricks is he's 31 years old. He's controlled for the next couple years, so he's not too pricey, and he has a lot of control. He's not a powerful pitcher, but he's a pitcher a lot like Hyun-Jin Ryu. He's only had one season where his ERA has been over 3.50, and in fact, last season it was a nice tidy 2.88. So if we got Kyle Hendricks and Chris Bryant, and we had to trade away maybe Biggio and Alejandro Kirk, might be a hard pill to swallow, but not the end of the world. As I said at the beginning of vlogging here, there was one player out of all the young core that I think could be flexible, who I could be okay with trading, it was Kevin Biggio. And I say that hard. It's just because people like Vlad and Bichette, I just think have a bit more upside. But maybe that's something that's to come out of here. As soon as I saw this Semien signing, and I was like, ooh, that's really interesting. I suspected him maybe going to the Angels or something like that. I was like, I wonder if there's another big move for Toronto in this. And it's interesting that basically Toronto's done a really good job this offseason if you look at it. And we'll talk about the Hall of Fame in a second too, because I'm really glad Derek asked that because I saw that news come out too. But if you look at this, really the biggest need for Toronto going into this offseason is starting pitching. Now, we haven't really addressed that yet, but we shouldn't be impatient because something could significantly happen there. But number 2 on that, in my opinion, was upgrading center field. And then you got the bullpen. We've done both of that quite effectively. Third base was a big question mark. And if Kevin Biggio is going over to third base, well, then we solved that problem as well. Really, the only thing holding the Jays back now from being really competitive is a solid number 2 starting pitching. That's really all we need. So I'm really excited here as a Jays fan now because one of the things that kind of irritated me, if you look at our last run when we had Bautista and Edwin, we had a great core there, but it wasn't really a balanced team. And then when we got to a team that had a lot more balance, like the Kansas City Royals, well, they kind of wiped the table with the Blue Jays. So the nice thing that I like with this rebuild is we're actually putting the pieces together. We have a strong bullpen. We got a strong 1 through 9, and we got a really nice 1 through 9. We're not just relying on power. We got speed there. We got defense. So we have the ability to manufacture runs where sometimes in the past with Edwin and Bautista and even Donaldson, nothing against that core. I love them. It was a really exciting time to be a Jays fan, but we were really counting on the bat. And somebody just said that, yeah, Yankees better watch out because that's one thing that I do see with the Yankees. You know, DJ LeMahieu's an awesome signing. Looks like they might get somebody else there, I heard, as well. They have addressed a little bit of their pitching, but, I mean, even with James Centellion going over there, he hasn't really pitched effectively or pitched at all in the last 2 years, coming off surgery. You got Luis Seravino coming off surgery as well. And God forbid anything happens to Garrett Cole. Well, if something happens to Cole, that's how much pressure's on the Yankees rotation. I could see the whole team folding. And I said this all along, I think the Achilles heel for the New York Yankees next year is going to be starting pitching. I really thought that they were just going to blow through the luxury tax like the Yankees really usually do. So it's very interesting to hear the Yankees talking about luxury tax, and really trying to stay under, I think it's $210 million or something around there. So it will be really interesting to see what moves that the Yankees make in the future, and maybe the Yankees stay away from absorbing so many large contracts. It's certainly something that I'm just putting a vlog together now, and if you look at Boston Red Sox, what a mess. They're actually in a total rebuild mode right now, but they have almost $200 million budget. Could you imagine being a team going through rebuild of $200 million in guaranteed contracts? Now, to be fair, I always lean hard on the Red Sox because they're my nemesis in baseball, but they do have a lot of players who, like Chris Sale, earning $30 million to be on the DH. But they also have things like David Price, where they're paying him actually $16 million to just pitch elsewhere. So that's one of the nice things about the Jays is we're making those moves, but outside of that $150 million to George Springer, we haven't really handcuffed ourselves to anything. Which kind of leads me to my next point, because people are all getting really excited about Trevor Bauer. And I really wish the Jays kind of stay away from Trevor Bauer. I think we have enough prospects in our system and enough young talent where we could sacrifice 1 or 2 people, either Kevin Biggio or Lourdes, not both, but one or the other, and really bring in a solid number 2. I've been talking about Cincinnati for a long time. Cincinnati, I don't think they're going to part with Luis Castillo, even though there was some talk about that earlier in this offseason. But I certainly could see Sonny Gray being an awesome target. And if you get Sonny Gray, then you might as well just take Moose as well. And that's a real interesting thing about the Blue Jays. And I just finished another vlog. Sorry, I keep talking about the vlogs I've done and not released. But it's kind of cool that there's so many teams that have a decent starter and somebody who could play third base. And all these teams want an MLB-ready player and catching prospects. The two things that the Jays have an abundance of. So I'll be really disappointed if the Jays don't, eventually make a trade here and get us our third baseman and definitely a number 2 starter. And if that happens, wow. Even if it's Chris Bryant and Kyle Hendricks, I would be very excited with that. Sonny Gray, Mike Moustakas, just as good in my opinion. And both of them, I think with Kyle Hendricks and Bryant, it's somewhere around $79 million. And with Sonny Gray and Moose, it's just about 84. So both scenarios are very similar with the amount of money that the Jays would have to absorb there. So it's very interesting. I'm excited to see what happens with the Blue Jays moving forward. And yeah, last before we close up, I won't go on too long tonight. I just said it would be a 15-20 minute chat. I was just really excited with the move that the Jays did today. Hall of Fame. Nobody on there. And I guess it comes down to that discussion. And I know we've had this discussion over and over again. You read it all the time. Does somebody like Barry Bonds deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? And that's always a difficult one for me. And I was always, love watching Barry Bonds hit those home runs. So I can definitely lean to why people would suggest that. But then I read the story about Hank Aaron recently, and Hank Aaron growing up and how he, presented himself to the game. I mean, the guy didn't even have a baseball bat. He had to use tree limbs. And that guy, when I look at him and his character and I compare him to Barry Bonds, I can easily see why somebody like Hank Aaron is in the home run Hall of Fame and somebody like Barry Bonds isn't. And for me, it just became a little bit more crystal clear when I look at some of these old guys. However, I have to maybe advocate for Barry Bonds a little bit and Sammy Sosa a little bit, because I could imagine it was almost like MLB at the time were just turning their head to the steroid use. And I would even go a little bit farther and say that MLB wanted those huge home run batting titles. We had just come back from a huge strike with Major League Baseball. Morale was at a huge low. The first thing that kind of turned around morale in baseball was with the Baltimore Orioles and the Man of Steel. Forgetting his name. It's so on the tip of my head right now. But anyways, him playing all those consecutive games in a row without getting hurt. As soon as I finish this live stream, it will come to me. I'm waiting for somebody to pop up in the comments when I'm there. But that was the first thing. But the real big thing that got people excited about baseball again was Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and Barry Bonds. So I guess we have to recognize that to a certain degree. And baseball, as I said, certainly turned their head to the steroid use. And in fact, with some of these big guys, it was almost encouraged. I just imagine it was really unsettling to be a major league pitcher during the steroid use times. Geez, that must have been tough. And I think now is a little bit more a reflection of the balance there between batting and pitching. So I like that. Thank you. Yes. Mr. Ripken. Yes, I was waiting for that. Thank you, Derek. You're going to save me all night. As soon as I got off there, I was going to have to Google that immediately because it would have bothered me. But yeah, Mr. Steel, Iron Steel himself, Carl Ripken of Baltimore Orioles. That was the first big thing that people got excited about after baseball sort of collapsed. But yeah, moving forward as we close up tonight, yeah, I could definitely see Biggio will play third. Unless there's some weird trade scenario. The only reason Biggio won't play third is if the Jays, as I said, go and make a trade with a team like Cincinnati or Chicago Cubs, and they absorb a starter and one of their third basemen. And I think Cincinnati would be a better scenario in this because you get Moose for 3 years. And that's the only way that Biggio is going to get moved. And I guess right now the Jays, for some reason, and I'm thankful for that, really covet Lourdes, because at the beginning of this offseason, it was all Gurriel Jr. is going to be traded. Lourdes is going to be traded. Lourdes is going to be traded. And that sort of thunder has certainly quieted down lately. I'm a big fan of Gurriel Jr., Lourdes. So I'm glad that he's really not in play. And honestly, if I had to trade Lourdes or Biggio, that's a tough one for me. I don't know. I would probably still lead towards Lourdes a bit, but that's just because I'm a fan of Biggio. I'm a fan of his dad, so maybe I'm just a little bit biased there. And before we finish up here tonight, what is our backup plan if we don't make a big signing or a big trade? Who is our signing? Is it going to be James Paxton? Are we going to get him for that 1-year deal? I did a vlog today where I said the Jays are definitely making him that offer. I've heard that it's on the table already from a couple sources. But I also heard that he has a 2-year deal on the table from a mystery team. And I suspect that the mystery team is either the Boston Red Sox, just because they're absorbing starting pitching at the moment. Maybe somebody like the Giants as well. And I was thinking later today, maybe it was somebody like Miami. So if it's not James Paxton and he does sign that 2-year deal, I guess we're looking at probably, and maybe hopefully, Taijuan Walker, maybe on a 2-year deal. There's something about Jake Odorizzi that I just don't like. I just don't think he's going to have a good year next year or the year after that. And I think Jake Odorizzi is going to command a 3-year deal close to $50 million. That's why he's held out this long and he's waiting for one of those teams to bite. I don't know if he'll get it because it looks like Tanaka wanted something very similar and he's just finishing up his negotiations. And it looks like he's going back to Japan to play, actually, or Asia, one of the teams there. So he's off the table. They actually need up more money. So, oh yeah, Biggio for Story. That's an interesting thing, actually. Before we close up, I keep saying that and I ramble on. That's why I call my thing Baseball Rambles. What the heck is going on with Colorado? Seriously. Colorado needs to do an entire rebuild. They know they have to do a rebuild. They're not competitive in their league at all. And they got all these players who are sitting there on the last year of their deals. I don't know, does like Nolan Arenado have like a massive no trade contract? And even if he had a no trade in his contract, Nolan Arenado, before we talk about Trevor Story, I think Nolan Arenado would waive that because that's how frustrated he is with the Rockies organization just to get the heck out of there. Trevor Story, though, he's going to be a steal. That would be really interesting because if we got Trevor Story for Biggio, that means that you would probably be looking at Bo Bichette going to third. That's not a horrible thing. I think out of the 3 positions, that's the one that he's least comfortable with. But that means that you would probably, or maybe, yeah, that's probably what would happen there if we got Trevor Story. Story would be shortstop. Semien would be our second baseman, and Bichette would definitely be moved over to third. But yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, Nolan Arenado and Kyle Friedland, somebody else who I think has another upside. And Kyle Friedland's a little bit interesting. I think he would be actually cheaper than trying to get Kyle Hendricks away. And I think Colorado would just be grateful to unload both contracts. So in that scenario, maybe you don't have to bid quite as high. And maybe even in that scenario, it's just Biggio and not any of our other top 6 prospects somehow. That would be really interesting to see how much Colorado really wants if the Blue Jays pushed hard for absorbing Nolan Arenado. And I guess with Nolan Arenado, it just comes down to, do teams think he's going to walk next season? Or is he going to stick around for that $164 million that he's owed to 2026? Either way, the Jays could afford it, so it's sort of a moot issue there. But not a lot of teams can afford it. And the real question there is, what are teams going to give up if it's just a 1-year deal? You don't want to give up Biggio for 1 year of Nolan Arenado. But if they throw in Friedland, that suddenly makes you go, And that's what makes it so interesting. I just did a vlog. I said you got Colorado, who has a third baseman and a starter. You got Cleveland, even, if you wanted to look at Plesac. I'd have to see how you pronounce his name. I know he's got 4 years of control. And Jose Ramirez. You got Cincinnati with Sonny Gray and Mike Moustakas. And you got the Chicago Cubs with Kyle Hendricks and Nolan Arenado. So I will be really frustrated if the Jays don't get one of these starters. As I said, I'd be quite happy with Sonny Gray. I would be quite happy with Kyle Hendricks. Both of them would make the Jays a threat and really make the Yankees scared. And I think the Jays and the Yankees now are the 2 teams that they're going to go knuckle to knuckle next season. And it's hard for me to predict as I close up how many wins the Jays are going to actually win next year. But this really puts them in a position, sorry as I clear my throat, to get him in the postseason. Because before they got Marcus Semien today, one thing that I was really worried about this morning when I read that they won't be doing an expanded playoffs was, will the Blue Jays even make the playoffs next year? And that's a really interesting question and a fair question to ask, because if the Blue Jays don't make the playoffs, that would be kind of devastating to fans a little bit. We kind of got spoiled last year because it was expanded to 8, and that's really the only reason why the Jays were a playoff team. I still say they're 1 year away. By adding Marcus Semien, I think that actually might get us there this year. It's going to be a question, do we overtake the Yankees for the American League East, and is that our road to the playoffs? Or are we fighting somebody like the Houston Astros or a team like that, or Oakland or some weird team for a wild card spot? The only thing that I'm comforted by is Tampa. They're kind of in rebuild already. I know they still got some awesome players there, but they traded away their number 1, 2 starters, and you don't trade away your top 2 starters if you want to compete. Simple as that, at least in my opinion. And Baltimore is a complete mess, and Boston is a disaster. I don't know what Boston's going to do. I guess the big question is, who is going to trade for Chris Sale next offseason? Something we could talk about on my next vlog. But anyways, thanks for everybody tuning in tonight and asking questions. As I said, I just wanted to get on here quickly, just talk about how awesome it is that the Jays landed Marcus Semien, how that might lead to some other moves, but how I really think that this will make the Jays a postseason team next year. And the Yankees, hey, you better watch out. We're coming, and we are serious. We're a young team. You guys are old and injured. Sorry to be a little bit mean there, but that's how I look at it. So if I was a New York Yankees fan right now, I would be really, really scared of Toronto. Have a good night to everybody. Everybody stay safe out there. We'll talk soon. We'll do another Sunday live chat in a little bit, and I'll post that on my vlog so you guys know when that's coming up. Take care. Stay safe. Talk soon. Bye, guys.